Next up is the dual 6-stage wave animators module called Wave Swarm. Just the name of this module alone gets me all juicy. I first heard it being used in that DreamsOfWires Miserere song, which to this day is one of my favorite things to listen to on any day. Such a hauntingly beautiful piece of music, but also the video was perfect for the soundtrack. What the Wave Swarm animator is basically a way to feed one single VCO output signal and get back 6 unison VCOs per channel. That's pretty gosh darn amazing if you ask me. And there are 2 channels, A and B, and each channel simulates up to 6 VCOs oscillating in unison. There are 12 onboard LFOs, and the front panel pots set the level of each of these animators, and there is a wet-dry mixer for both the A and B sides of the module. So let's go down the panel real quick. Looking at animator A, and animator B is exactly the same, so I'll only cover A here. The AN 1 through 6 pots are levels of how much signal you want to process with the individual animator. Each animator, under the covers, has a fixed frequency LFO that runs constantly, and when you raise the pot, it applies the LFO to the incoming signal. What's happening here is that the LFO is slightly detuning the incoming VCO signal at a fixed LFO speed, giving us that super saw or fat synth sound we all love. Since all of the LFOs are slightly out of phase with one another, the more you add, the fatter the sound gets. They call this heterodyning, or simply beating the 2 signals together. A simple example of this is I have 3 VCOs here all tuned to the exact same frequency, sounding kind of narrow and flat. But if I tune one of the 3 VCOs slightly out of tune, maybe like 1.1 hertz, you can hear the 2 signals beating against each other, slightly out of phase, causing the sound to widen. Now detuning the 3rd oscillator by 1.5 hertz, and we have our super saw from the 1980s. Now let's do the same experiment with just one of the VCOs into Wave Swarm. In order to hear the true effect of the animator on your incoming signal, you'll have to raise the dry A a bit to mix back in the amount of dry signal you want to hear. With dry signal coming in and the AN1 offsetting the signal slightly, you can start to hear the swarming effect. And we have 5 more animators to go. That's just one of the animators. The module offers 2 individual 6-stage wave animators via the in-A and out, or the in-B and out signal paths. That's 2 boring mono VCOs coming into this one module, A and B, and leaving loaded up with 6 animated, warbling, pulsing, beating signals, unique and separate from each other via the out A and B. However, if you do not jack a signal into B, then A is normaled over to B, and one single VCO can benefit from 12 animators at once. That's just brilliant. Lastly, about the outputs, there is an A plus B here. While using out A and out B separately for 2 VCO swarms is neat, you can also sum up the 2 incoming VCOs from in A and in B, then animate it to death and output both through one audio output via the out A plus B. In other words, just a ton of signal paths and options available on this fairly straightforward module. Let's do some animations, shall we? So with this at about 12 o'clock, we're getting just the dry signal coming in. If I turn this all the way off, make it completely wet, and then turn up the animator. You see, this is what one animator is doing to that note, or that signal. If I turn up a second animator, 3rd, and 4th, you can hear it's just starting to get beefier, but now let's turn up the wet dry so we get some of the original signal back in here. And we still have 2 animators to go. Now, there's nothing that says you have to use all 12, but, they're there. Why not use them? One of the things I noticed is that you turn these up too much and it winds up kind of sounding a little muddy. Now remember, the original VCO sounds like this, which isn't terrible, but we want to animate it, and it sounds like this. Now the manual does state that you can keep animating. You can keep, as long as only A is jacked in, you can keep going. However, if I'm going to jack A, which is then normal to B, I have to use A and B out in order to hear 12 animators, because of course these 6 are bound to B. And if you're only coming out of A, you're only going to hear A. So that was my mistake for the last 2 years of thinking I was only limited to 6. So now I can turn these second set of 6 up. And get even more animations. So that's not terrible. I saw this being used in that, again, I keep dropping the name DreamsOfWires, but he's the guy that does all these demos for AJH Synth. So I will again point you to go listen to Miserere, I think it's called, or Miserere. Go listen to that beautiful piece of music where he uses the Wave Swarm, and his sounds a whole lot better, but he also knows what he's doing. So God bless you, Wayne. Beautiful music you make with this synth. I hope to get anywhere near close to what you do someday. So that's all I have to say about the Wave Swarm dual 6-stage wave animator. I mean, it just sounds fantastic. It takes one oscillator and turns it into 12 of these unison synced, beautiful, fatty sounds. I'm really happy with this one just for what it can do with one oscillator. So now imagine I could set, if I didn't have a room full of other modular gear, I could set an oscillator to be a low sub drone thing through Ring SM. I could set another one to be a power chord or a fifth off of that one. And then I can use the third oscillator through Wave Swarm to do some kind of melody. And it just sounds fantastic. So, all right, that's it. I'm done gushing.